Veterans Day. We're going to talk all about it and the presidential election. I don't know if you guys have heard that happened. I know, right? But there's no lack of topics for today, so stay with us.
Broad topics, broad minds, broad hosts, but not just for broads. This is Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougall.
Welcome to Broadscast, everybody.
Welcome. I'm a little sore throaty today, so I apologize.
Sore throaty. That's an adjective.
It's my sexy voice.
Yes, I thought you were like getting all Brenda Vaccaro on me.
Yeah. So I apologize for that.
Yeah, it's so welcome to Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougall.
Hey,
that is me.
you.
Hey, woohoo! Wow, it's been a week. But before we get to all of that, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we have a lot of new listeners. Welcome. We have a new station. We have, if you don't know, maybe you are listening on radio. We're on 10 stations now, and as well as iTunes and iHeartRadio, and always on broadscast.com.
Right.
All those places. All the places
that people like to hear things. We're
right.
there.
Right. And if you are a business owner or you have a product or a service, or we're also putting together our holiday sponsorship packages. So give us an email, broads@broadscast.com, if you want to get in on that.
And partner with us and grow the show and grow your businent and your product and,
Exactly. Win.
Yeah.
So, and in addition, what?
Winning. Kind of want to bring that back a little bit.
I think
we're do some brevity this week.
Wouldn't it be so nice if we had like a Charlie Sheen scandal, just to kind of lighten things up?
Please give me a.
But hold on, but I'm not done. But for those of you who don't have a product or service, you can still support the show. We have links at our special offers all over the website, but also you could go to patreon.com/broadscast. Throw us a buck or two.
And because we're talking so fast this morning, if you can't follow along, go check out our broadscast.com website where we have all of our past guests and conversations that we've had on the air. But then we also have links to all the things that Jackie is alluding to.
Yeah, we have like 110 episodes or something like that that we've done.
Over 12 years. We're rocking.
Over 40 years. All right. So anyway, let's get to it. So today on the show, we're talking Veterans Day. We are going to talk with a veteran later on in the show, candidly, not only to thank him for his service, but also to talk about like what it is that veterans truly need today.
Right.
And it's not, in my opinion, it's not just a day of parades. And, while gratitude goes a long way, there are some tangible things that we can do.
Like when you see people in uniform, do you ever say anything?
I do.
I do all the time.
You do?
I do.
You say thank you?
I do, or I do a head nod. Like I just like make eye contact. I don't always say thank you, but it's just like an
acknowledgement.
An
That's a
acknowledgement. But like at the game this past weekend, we went to the Rams game.
We did.
Yeah, and they sing the national anthem. The national anthem, and then they show all the veterans in the audience.
Right.
And the plane flew over, and
oh my gosh, that was so overwhelming.
Crying, like I
thought it was because the Rams are so bad.
Yeah, but I didn't know that yet until the first period, first quarter. So, it's very emotional. I love that we have a day, but I think we should always be acknowledging.
Yeah, and I think many people do.
I hope so.
But I think in addition to acknowledging, I love that we have this platform that we can really kind of get some action items, and help out. So anyway, that is later in the show. And I also, there's some little known facts about Veterans Day that I'm going to pop out later in the show. Yeah, but you didn't know I was going there.
I didn't.
Okay, so for those of you who are breathing, you know that our presidential election happened this past Tuesday.
Yeah.
Wow.
Have you been feeling off this week?
Are you kidding? Like, I got to the point where I think I even tweeted, like, should I work out or just drink? Because something had to happen. And you could imagine which one I chose. But yeah, it's, well, let's go back because I feel like I've lived 5 lives in the past few days.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that day. So you were watching the coverage.
I worked all day. I voted. I was very emotional when I voted. And let me just say this. I mean, it's not been, if you listen to the show, I've been very clear about where I voted, who I voted for. But in general, I'm a split ticket voter. I pay attention to person, issues, not party lines. Having said that, I voted for Hillary Clinton. And I didn't vote for her because she was a woman. I voted for her because I aligned more with her ideals and her character, despite the fact that there were some things that I was uncomfortable with. They weren't as uncomfortable as I felt about the opposing nominee. So, candidate. Having said that, I left the polls feeling very emotional, and not that I was casting my vote for a woman, but that I was feeling like this is so important. It was so close. We were polar opposites. I felt this great divide, and I was emotional because I was worried. I was emotional because I felt like there were a lot of things at stake. And it was the first time that my son was so vested in politics that it was a powerful day. And then when I started watching the election, I was like, what? And so I was in shock. And I don't know if had been living in a bubble. I don't know if we missed the boat, if people were hiding about how they felt about certain candidates because we are not supportive and we are not encouraging of freedom of speech in this country, that people felt like they couldn't share their opinions publicly, so that my side got blindsided. I don't know. So I was watching and thinking, oh my gosh, and then I was in a son's basketball practice, so I didn't get to see live coverage, which I'm almost grateful for because I think that would have thrown me over the edge. And my dad kept texting me, and then I was like, is there any mathematical way? I mean, it was just such a weird.
Yeah.
Everybody in my surroundings, and I just kept putting up. I'm like, I don't know who you voted for, but this is where we are. And the face of people around me, like just disbelief. And these are people that didn't necessarily vote for either candidate. Because they didn't know, they didn't feel strong enough about either. They didn't feel like their vote cast for the independent parties made a difference, so they didn't vote. But they were still upset about the results. Well, I don't know. I just felt disappointed. And then when, all the negativity has started to come out, like that's even made it worse. Like all these stories about hate crimes and hate speech, and I don't know how much of it is legit or not, but there is such a brewing ick, that I worry about. I just worry about it. And I think that's where I've just been so anxious the last couple of days. Like, I just don't feel comforted. I don't feel supported. People in powerful positions are like, all right, let's just unify now. I'm like, what? You've just divided this country for 18 months so drastically, and now we're just supposed to all high-five and kumbaya. Like, they did that. Clinton, Obama, Trump, they did that. And I feel like, and now we're just supposed to just come together all of a sudden when people have been threatening violence against each other over their political beliefs. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah, it's that night for me. It was so emotional. Like I cried most of the time. I really struggled. It's unbelievable. Like I felt like and we were being punked in a way.
I said that on Twitter. I'm like, okay, Ashton, come out. All right, you got us. This is a good one.
Yeah. I mean, with everything that was said, it was just like, and watching people react and continue to react. 'Cause I think more important than who is our president is the reaction of the people. And I try to teach my kids, like, we the people, that's right. What the Constitution, like, is. It's not I the person or, so it is up to us, but that's, right. That's where I am now. So let's go back. So I'm emotional. I'm anxious. I'm like disbelief, all of it. Right. It's right. All just crazy to think of this. So then I went to bed. I ended up like, and I have this thing, I joke that I have stress narcolepsy because that's the right word, right? Uh-huh. Because when I get stressed, like if my husband and I ever get in an argument, like I go to bed because right. I will sleep. And of course he's up all night because he can't sleep. So, and that's what happened the night of the election. I went to bed. I was like, I can't do this. And he hadn't slept in days, And so just the next day, I was so glad the kids went to school because I felt like, and I described this, the only other time I felt like this or a similar feeling to this is September 11th of like, what is happening? Like, I felt vulnerable and scared and like, I don't know if we can recover from this.
Right. I felt that way too. And I felt like, now what do I do? Who do I call? Where do I go? Like, it was a weird, because part of it is that people have been so private about some people have been so private about their views. It's like, I don't even know who I can talk to, and like, for the most part, I know in my inner circle, like my like-minded, but in general, like Facebook has been horrible, social media, and I wanted to shut down, but like I said to you this morning, like the toxicity has been so horrific that I'm trying to shut it off, but I don't want to live in a bubble either, and so I'm feeling this conflict. Yeah, like I
don't think you can live in a bubble now, whether you want to or not.
I mean, you could. There are lots of people like, I'm unfriending you if you voted for Trump. I'm not there at all. No. Just be respectful with your opinion like I am with mine. I don't honestly care who you voted for. I want to understand why you voted for either partner or person. I really want to understand. But if you're disrespectful to me and you're spewing hate and the name calling, like I've called out a couple of my friends. I'm like, why are you being so negative? Like, why are you calling me an a-hole? Like, I think I'm allowed to say that. I don't know. But like, I've been called foolish, stupid. I'm like, what? Why? And that's the part that I'm struggling with. Like, and we're being asked to unify under these conditions. Like, I'm an open-minded person. I want to know. I want to understand. So that's been hard for me because people that I'm close with or that I know personally have been so full of hate that upsets me.
Right.
It upsets me.
Well, and it's
not on an everyday basis. Like, I know these people, they don't walk around hating the world, but then there's like this little part of them. I'm like, wow, I've never seen that before. Right. And I don't like that.
Yeah. And the fact is that, I work from home, so I am living under a rock at my house. And, as we've talked about before, the studio is where I live. Yeah. But I'm not interacting with a lot of people right now. In a few minutes, we're actually going to talk to two different, I guess you would call them millennials, from different sides of the country.
So what is our term? Are we just old?
We're Gen Xers, I think,
we're Gen
right?
Xers. Is that us?
I believe so.
I don't know.
Yeah, we're Gen Xers.
Just old.
Yeah, we're just non-millennial. But I think it's important to get their reaction and what's happening, in major cities across the country. But I'm not out there to get. I'm only getting the reaction on Facebook, and I'm torn because I think it's amazing that we live in a country where people can protest, and that we have that right. Not in protest, I mean,
right,
at the true sense, not burn cars or flip things over.
That's called rioting. That's not protesting.
But at the same time, there are those who are like, get over it, and I think that that's messed up too, because I think most of the people who are saying that are, white, straight men. So straight white men.
They're people that got their vote, that got their vote heard. I mean, that's the difference.
No, but there are even people who didn't vote for him who think, oh, get over it, because it's not truly going to affect him. And the people who are against or who are protesting or expressing their opinions, it's not that because their team didn't win. And I hate that. I think there's this two totally different sides where the one side's like, oh, your team didn't win, suck it up.
Right.
And the other side is like, no, we're not talking about my team didn't win.
Right.
We're talking about my basic human rights.
And I think for me, again, because I watched a lot. I listened a lot. I read a lot. I watched every debate. I watched both conventions, NPR. Like I have immersed myself because I really wanted
smart, NPR.
Well, but I wanted to make decisions based on, not based on tweets and headlines, because it's ridiculous. So in all of that, I still feel like I don't entirely understand his plan. And I don't think most people do. And so I think for me, it's what is going to happen? And I think that's where we talk about being vulnerable. And I think that's what people are expressing in terms of their fears, because we're not entirely sure. We've heard a lot of negativity, banning, a lack of inclusion. We've heard, and it possibly could be rhetoric. It could be just the character that he became for the last 18 months. But that's all we know. And so to feel vulnerable. And then someone said to me the other day that go to his website. You can read it all there. And I'm thinking, why should I have to do all that work? I mean, and maybe that's me being lazy, but like for 18 months, he's had the pulpit. And why do we not know clearly what he's doing?
Yeah.
Or what he's intending and how, in this flip-flopping. And I think that's where people are like, wait, I don't know what I'm getting. With her, you knew what you were getting. Liked it or not, you knew what you were going to get. Whether it was status quo, you knew. With him, it's like you're all over the board. And I think that's why people are feeling like a little unclear. But that's me, the old lady. I know we've got two people calling in this morning that are going to clear it up for us.
Right. So I do want to talk in a little bit, too, about like the meeting at the White House and where we are now. But I still want to go back to like that reaction. So our first guest today is on the line. Casey is calling from New York. Hi, Casey.
Hi, how are you guys?
Hi. So you live in New York City. And
I do.
In the we would call you a millennial.
I know.
Why do you make the face when you call her a
I
millennial?
don't know, a young puppy. No. But Casey,
unfortunately.
So you live, what an amazing place, because not only, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump both have such history in New York City. So take us back to Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, what's the reaction that you're seeing?
Sure, totally. So I really felt like things have been quiet in the city since Tuesday. Commuting to work for 30 minutes on a subway, usually there's hustle and bustle. The subways are packed shoulder to shoulder, and people, will smile or say a couple things. I mean, it is a morning commute, so it's a little cranky sometimes. But I just feel like it's been so quiet here lately. Like subways Tuesday or Wednesday morning and Thursday morning, I feel like no one's really saying anything to each other because no one really knows what to do or how to react, because it was such a shock for most people, at least in the city. I feel like it's tough. I think that it was very surprising, and I think that it's time. My reaction as a millennial is to show love more than ever. I felt like when I woke up on Wednesday morning, I kind of wanted to hug everyone I saw on the way to work and just say, we're in this together, and you can't fight hate with hate. You have to fight it with love.
But do you feel like we're in this together when you hear some of the negativity and some of the hate message and racism and bigotry? Like, do you really feel like we're in it together, or that's just a small population that's secluded into their own little backyard?
I mean, I think for me, that was the scariest part. This is the second election that I was able to vote in, and I feel like this is probably, because I'm coming into adulthood now, and I'm living on my own, and I have a full-time job, so this is an election that really is going to affect my future for sure. And it's weird because every time I heard Donald Trump speak about something really hateful, I was always like, oh, no one could agree with that. No one would ever think that. Like, no one could possibly say, oh, yeah, you're right. Like, I do think that too. And it's hard. It's kind of a tough pill to swallow to think that maybe we aren't all in this together. But I feel like the only way, I feel like one person could say, I can't change the world. I can't, help this cause. But I think each of us can. I think just a small act of love every day is the only way to change this outcome. And I feel like people, people say, I don't have an impact, or I can't make a change. But I think that's how all change starts, by just one person. I also don't want to be the girl that brings all the problems to the table and doesn't have a solution. And even at work, when I go into meetings, I don't want to bring problems to the table and then not have a way to fix it. So there's problems in front of us right now, and I think the way I'm going to try to attack it is by just doing small things. If I see someone being verbally harassed, I mean, there was so many stories of Muslim women, being verbally or physically assaulted after this election, and if I see that, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to stand up for other women, other people. I want my future and my children's future to be as bright as possible.
Do you think that is a point of view that's going to last? I mean, I see this. On July 4th, I see it on September 11th, on days where we're honoring people. Even today, we're all about veterans, but it doesn't last. It's like people do it because they feel fired up, and then it dissipates, and then you go on your merry way because it doesn't impact you that day.
Right.
So how do you, as a millennial, or just I don't want to keep categorizing you that, just as a young woman.
Yeah.
How do you keep yourself motivated? I mean, I know it's only a couple days, but I think that's the fear that I have as an adult. Like, how do people stay motivated to continue doing those things that you're talking about? Because it's amazing.
I know. That's the thing. We have to stick to it. And I think it all goes back to each person has an individual agenda that needs to be followed, and you need to stick to it. I mean, I hope that I can inspire other millennials in my friend circle, and that it kind of is like a chain effect from there. Mm-hmm. It's like joining volunteer groups or just volunteering for things that you believe in or causes that you are really true to your heart. I hope that people will stay true to it. But I think just because now that we do have a new president, people might want to stay true to it because they don't believe in the things that Donald Trump may believe in. So I hope people stick to it. I agree with you. I think sometimes it's easy to fall off the bandwagon, but I think if we each in our own lives make those small changes and love the people we love, hold our families and friends really close, and share each of our individual messages, hopefully that things will change and get better. And I think I was talking to a friend this morning, and I was saying that Martin Luther King Jr. keeps coming to mind for me, because you can't fight hate with hate. You can only fight hate with love. Right. So that's just the message that I hope to live by for the next couple of years, and hope for the best. I hope that we all can come together.
I think that what this election has pointed out to a lot of people, which I've been saying for a very long time, is that, your vote locally and in your state for your state officials really does have a huge impact in the big picture. Like on a big scale, on a national scale, we can see that your vote may not really all that matter with one candidate winning the popular vote and the other one winning. I mean, that is a clear indication as to how your local involvement really makes a difference. Because if now we're a Republican majority, we have those of us that are on the other side have an uphill battle. And so if we don't pay attention to our local politicians, to our state, elections, that's where you put your effort in. There's a lot of people that are pretty apathetic about it, and we can see how that apathy shows up. Right.
And I love the idea that we all need to get involved in our own local communities, because the stronger our community is, the stronger our country is. And so we're so focused on this president and how much we've talked about this, like how much can the president really do other than,
Right. But then it relies on the people around him and the Senate and the House. And those are the people that we actually put those people in there.
Right.
So if we're not paying attention to who we're putting in, we can't just blame the president.
But our emails to them and our protests to them, those make a huge difference. I've seen that, So Casey, before we let you go, what has been the reaction to the protests happening in New York? What does that look like? Have you seen that firsthand?
I have, actually. I take the crosstown bus to get home every single day from work, and a couple of days it's been shut down because around the Trump Tower area there was a protest the night after the election, so Wednesday night. And then also up 6th Avenue there was a march as well, which was pretty crazy. I didn't see that one in person, but I saw it on Twitter and Instagram, and a couple of my friends were in the area, so on their Snapchat feeds and stuff like that. But there's been a lot of protests and a lot of people standing up, which I also think is amazing, to have that opportunity to be able to speak up after the election results came out. I also think that, burning an American flag in front of Trump Tower isn't necessarily, I think that's just doing exactly what Donald Trump is standing for, which is hate and not being proud to be an American. I mean, we all had the right to vote, and we should be happy that we are in that position to be able to even have a say, even if it didn't go your way in the election. But yeah, there's been a lot of, especially with the millennials, I feel like a lot of my friends have been out protesting and out on the streets after the election. So it has been a little chaos in the city the last couple nights.
And I wonder, I know here in Los Angeles, they've interviewed people, but a lot of the people that are rioting, I'm not even saying protesting, didn't vote. And so I don't know what they're angry about. And so there is a mob mentality. So there's a lot of people on the other side that are saying, oh, you Dems, look how stupid you are for the way you're behaving. I'm like, you know what? The people that are rioting are not one side. They're just rioting. They're just
Yeah,
You
we're
know,
not talking about there are plenty of people who voted and are protesting.
But
There's a
using
huge
their
difference between.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's getting convoluted right now, and we're again creating this great divide that it's one side is the only ones that are protesting and doing it in a violent way. I'm like, no,
Right.
I don't believe that.
Well, Casey, thank you so much for joining us. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep spreading the love. And honestly, if you know,
I thought you were going to quote Grateful Dead right there.
No, but if you come up against, two Gen X moms with bitter attitudes, just ignore us and keep doing your thing.
Hey, keep trucking on.
I absolutely
I don't
will.
have a bitter attitude. Just today. Just this
I'm
morning.
just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Keep trucking on.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks so much, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
So I just think it's important that we listen to younger people that are like just experiencing this for the first time. We've never experienced anything like this in our.
Know. That's what I was saying to my dad. I'm like, Dad, I've only been paying attention to politics, for the last X amount of years. I'm like, has it ever been like this? I'm like, has the Ku Klux Klan ever come out publicly for a candidate? And he's like, no. I'm like, wow. This is crazy, And so I think there's a lot of history. I think we're all learning about the popular vote and the electoral vote. I think we're all learning about democracy. I think there's a lot of educated people that hopefully, like Casey said, that they continue to do something with this experience as opposed to just, now we're just going to put all the power in someone that we don't necessarily support or we do support. We still have to be active and do our part to participate.
Right. I think, like I was saying before, I think that this has been a process for me. And, at first it was like, no, we cannot accept it. I mean, it's kind of like the stages of grief, right? Yeah. So, and I'm like, we can't, I was upset. I'm bargaining. I'm not, denial, I'm angry, all of it in denial for sure. But I'm at the point now where I feel like I understand and respect protesting, peaceful protesting, because I think that is one of the things, especially here on Veterans Day, that these amazing veterans have fought for. Like, we have these freedoms. How amazing is that? And if you are doing it in a place where you're not putting anybody in danger, go for it. Do your thing. Do I think it's effective? Not necessarily, because it's not going to change anything. Like, no, they're not going to go, oh, you're not happy? Well, let's switch presidents, Right. And people who are grasping at straws thinking that the electoral college is going to not vote the way we think, because they don't technically vote until December, right?
Right, middle of December.
Yeah,
right.
so
20 electoral votes have to. What are they called? Faithless voters or something?
Yeah, that they don't follow the and there's always the discussion between the electoral college and the popular vote, because everybody knows that Hillary won the popular vote. So that's.
I also think it's important to keep in mind that 48% of America did not vote.
Yeah,
I mean. What?
Hi, America.
That is unbelievable. So what is that about? Is that people that didn't feel like they had a nominee that represented them, and that's why they didn't vote? Did they not vote because they felt like the media was casting so much support and attention towards Hillary that they feel like they didn't need to because she was a slam dunk? Mm-hmm. I mean, what were people saying? There was a lot of people that I talked to that didn't vote because they didn't support either one, and they voted for the Libertarian, or for the Independent Party because they wanted to make a statement that why don't our independents get more coverage and why don't they get more of a voice? And then there are people that just said they couldn't do either. They just couldn't do either, so they just didn't. But I think it's shocking when we talk about all of America. It was half of America and then half of that. So.
Right.
It's bizarre. It's so I don't know. I'm disappointed that more people didn't vote.
Yeah. But
not because of one way or the other. I'm disappointed that we didn't have that much pride or ownership or like, I don't know. People were just had their hands thrown up. I mean, everybody kept saying this whole time, lesser of two evils. They both suck. Like, wow, I don't remember feeling that way about a presidential election that, I just don't. Yeah. And so that's our fault. I mean, I do think that that's our fault as a country in some ways, that we didn't seek out, support, encourage people to rise to the occasion and to be better candidates and hold them more accountable, because I do think that comes down to us in some way. The checks and balance, I think, start with us, and it's like you said, calling your your state assembly, calling your senators and your congresspeople to make sure that they're doing their due diligence inside where it matters. Like,
right.
We just think someone else is going to do it. But those
Right.
phone calls, those emails, those petitions,
And
it
we
makes
assume,
a difference.
yeah, that our
That's when you
representatives
protest.
and our senators and all that, we assume that they're going to go in the way that is predictable, but they don't always.
Yeah.
And if they're really hearing from,
Their
their
constituents.
totally, that there's a chance there.
Right.
There. So,
But that's what I'm saying. So, it's a trickle down effect, and it's the same thing now with moving forward. It's a trickle up. We have to build in locally to get that message up to the higher, because you can see how the higher trickles down.
Right.
There's just
right. So what do you think? Well, two things. First of all, I hesitated to say this on social media, but you know what? This is our show, so I can say whatever the heck I want. Right? But I think that the best way to control Donald Trump is to make him president. Because you know what? You can't just go spewing your hate and your vitriol and creating. I believe that there are ramifications if he's creating riots and because your opinions and your thoughts. Like,
well, if he
I
wasn't
think,
president, though, he would just go back to constructing buildings. He would just make it miserable for us in terms of everything was rigged, but he would just go back to what he was doing. He wouldn't do anything political. I honestly believe that he never really wanted this. I honestly believe that he never really intended this to happen.
There's so many things to talk about.
But you know what I'm saying? I have said that all along, that I think that he kind of went in like, I just want to ruffle some feathers, and and then he just started building momentum, and then everybody else fell by the wayside, and then he's like, oh my gosh.
Did you see his victory speech?
No, I turned it off. I couldn't watch it.
I saw it the next day, but no one in his family, including him, looked victorious. They looked like, oh crap.
Well, that's what I said about the meeting yesterday in the White House, that why it took more than 15 minutes, because they were like, okay, Donald, this is the White House. This is where people make big time decisions.
Yeah.
That's the president. I feel like they were giving him a government
and
101.
he looked so vulnerable, and
he was panicked because
he was also called out. Did you see Barack Obama was standing up tall, shaking his hand, and Trump was like,
no,
it's like the mean boy.
Yeah.
It was truly the bully on the schoolyard.
Yeah.
And now it's like, okay, bully, we're giving you this position.
I did not watch his speech, but the interpretation that people had was that he looked uncomfortable. He just stuck to the script. He didn't make eye contact. He was swaying weirdly, no smiling.
Melania's got to be like, you got to be kidding me. Yeah. She was living quite the sweet little life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now she's she's going to be under a microscope.
Going into election night, his own party that it's going to take a miracle for him to win. I mean, they weren't prepared either.
But I think and that's a whole other topic, is I think that the media screwed it up, because people thought, well, Hillary's going to win. I don't have to go out and vote. I don't have to do that, But to go back, so he's on stage, he's with his family. Nobody looks victorious. They all look like a deer in headlights. Like, oh my God, this is. Right. I mean, that's a reality show right there.
Right.
Throwing this blowhard into the White House, and now he has to do something diplomatic But his son, that poor little boy,
I know.
He looked like a cross between I can't believe this is happening to me, and writing the tell-all in his head. You know what I mean? That kid. First of all, I don't know the last time there was a little boy in.
A boy or a child?
A child in the White House.
Oh, Melania. I mean, the Sasha and...
They're not boys.
As I said, are you saying a boy or a child? You said child.
No, a male child.
Oh.
Because, before
Reagan, right? How old were his kids?
They were grown at that point.
Wasn't there a young one? Yeah, maybe. You're right.
Yeah. So I just can't even, I can't think of.
Well, Kennedy.
Yeah. That was before we were born. Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But he just... I feel terrible for that kid too, because he was probably living his own little life, and I just.
So here, did you know that Trump on his plane ride to it was to the White House. He took his own private plane, and he banned the media.
Oh yeah,
why was that?
I don't know, because the media is usually there, and
that's what I'm saying. He's bucking tradition, and people are celebrating that, and I'm like, you kind of got to acquiesce at some point. There are still some traditions. There are still some things, because it's all about transparency now. He's what did they say? He's the first president to never have turned over his tax returns. There are some things I know people are like, yeah, buck the system. And other people are like, wait, but There are
some of
still
the
some
systems.
rules that you have
Right,
to follow. You
right.
can't completely abandon
Right.
all of the things that we've been celebrated for and living, for all these years. You can't just say,
Yeah.
flip your middle finger to everything. Like,
Right.
so what was that about? Like, why didn't? I'm just curious. And they're all probably because they were all panicking inside the plane. Like, oh my God, they've never been to the White House. They've never met the Obamas. Like,
Yeah.
and
he's
now there's-
probably afraid. And the thing is, he has to behave now.
Yeah.
He has to completely change his way. And I'm not saying not to call things out and not,
Right.
like I'm at a place of, just to go back a little, I'm at a place of acceptance now. Not acceptance. I'm not happy with it. It doesn't mean I accept him, but I accept the fact that he is in the White House or will be in the White House, and we have to deal with it. So now I feel like we as people need to stand up even more so, not against him as the president, because that's a losing battle, but what we care about, because he was representing all of us, right? He made some BS statement about like how he's going to bring America together like no one has or whatever, and which is crap. But I think now like we just have to acknowledge the fact that we cannot change this and figure out what we can do to impact, like, because I don't think he can, as president, I don't think he can stand up and be like, I'm sending all Muslims, I'm not letting them in, or this and that. Like, I think he has to change.
He removed the Muslim ban comment from his website. That was all over his page on his website. It's gone now.
Yeah.
He's surrounding himself. I mean, the reports are starting to come out of who he's going to be, putting into his cabinet, and he's surrounding himself with some.
I hope somebody locks that cabinet.
I know, but there are, where he's at right now is he's going to have to figure out a way to make nice with all of Mitch McConnell, I mean, there are representatives that he's going to have to figure out a way to make nice with all these people if he wants his ideas to get passed. He has a lot of really conservative Republicans that he's putting into place, which is not a surprise, but he's got to be able to figure out a way to keep the door open a little bit so that he can get what he wants done. And that's going to take, some of the Democrats, coming to his side, and there's going to be some strict negotiation, and that's not going to come from him. It's going to be the people that he surrounds himself with, which is what we've always said. You're only as good as the people you surround yourself with.
Right.
So if he gets in there and someone says to him, you can't be that radical, you can't be that conservative, you have to figure out a way to find a middle ground, we'll see. I mean, we've got, Elizabeth Warren in there, we've got Bernie Sanders in there, we have, Kamala Harris from California. We still have some pretty, kick buddy people in there that have vowed to do exactly what the Republicans have said, not work with the president, unless you see it our way. So we do have, hopefully some people in there that are still going to fight for the rest of us.
Right.
Because,
Right.
we're back in a majority.
Yeah. And the thing is, historically, if you look at the way he would fall on issues, years ago, he was very moderate. Like,
I read somewhere that as in his adult life, he has changed his party affiliation 5 times.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read that in the Washington
But I
Post
was
or
reading, something. Because there was that one meme that was going around that he said if he ever ran for president, it would be as a Republican because they're stupid or blah, blah, blah. He never said that. So I had gone to Snopes and I had gone and read like all of the quotes from that People magazine, and he never said that. Yeah. He was, however, very a lot more liberal in social. He said he was liberal in social issues. He said, but that's kind of what's dangerous too, is like he said what he had to say as a Republican candidate to get these people behind him. Right. And now he can and they all do that. This is not in his defense, but they all go to a specific place to get those.
Right. For me, the danger in it in this particular is he did all those things, said all those things, but it was really filled with venom, which is different than I think past candidates, because both sides there was such a, that's why people are feared, like deporting people, banning people, blocking people out, taking away, like it had such a different tone to it that I think those people have a right to be nervous, but getting into office, he's going to have to be a little bit more moderate. He's going to have to figure out a way to temper some of that. And now he's going to be left with 25% of the population who are going to be pretty pissed off if he doesn't deport the brownies, the brown people. That's what he's claiming he's going to do, deport all the brown people, And I think that did him a disservice that he went so far that I think he's going to struggle with having to come back from that. I don't know. But if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Broadscast with Kim Goldman and Jackie McDougal. McDougal? Who are you, McDougal?
Did you forget my name?
I did forget your name for a second. But you're just listening to us, and it is Veterans Day. And do I have Bob on the line?
Yes, you do.
Okay,
I
wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if it was going to be you or your nephew. So today is Veterans Day.
Yeah, he actually, I could not get a hold of him. I think he may be at the Veterans Hospital because of some of the stuff he's been going through.
Okay. Well, Bob, you can share with us in 1 second. I just want to make sure that we pay our due respect to you as a veteran. I put a call out and wanted people to call in today so that we could do our best to honor and to truly understand what it's like to be a veteran. We've been bitching and complaining about politics for the first part of the show, but I would like to move on to something a little bit more impactful and important to me. So, Bob, thank you for taking the time out this morning. So, tell us, where did you serve? Tell me your military background. Tell us your story.
Yeah, so I was actually a very young guy, 17 years old, and I came from a long line of veterans. My dad was in the U.S. Army, and ironically, because my mom was a nurse in the Japanese Army during World War II, and so I had relatives on both sides.
Oh wow!
And so when I decided to go into the military, and I had to have my parents sign off on it at that age, and I decided I wanted to really serve at what I believe was the highest level. So I decided and volunteer. I enlisted into the Marine Corps, and so I went in with certain expectations and everything, and I think a lot of us did.
Right.
And then going through boot camp, and then getting out into the real stuff, and it's just I think I, like a lot of other guys and now women,
right.
I think a lot of us, we go in with a certain, and I don't think there was fear there initially, but I think we went in with more of this kind of Hollywood kind of thing, what it was going to be like. Then when you get into the reality of it, it's not. It's not even close.
So do you think that the military at that time didn't adequately prepare you for, they physically trained you and maybe not emotionally or mentally trained you? Is that what I'm hearing you say, or you? Well,
no, it wasn't that. I think even prior to going in, because I remember one of the things, especially in boot camp, we watched 2 movies in boot camp. One was the DI with Jack Webb. Right. And the other movie was The Sands of Iwo Jima with John Wayne, which is kind of the whole motivation kind of thing. So we go in, and we have these kind of like romantic view of what it's going to be like.
Right. What's the reality?
The reality. Well, the reality is that when you're going into, after boot camp, I think boot camp, especially Marine Corps boot camp, prepares you. Then you go into additional training, infantry training, because I started out as a grunt in 0311. So going through that, getting into, and when you're being shipped and everything like that, you're nervous. And again, I think a lot of people, and myself included, I had the wrong idea. When you get into it and when you're actually in it, I don't want to go into the details because, there's still some thoughts there on it. It's just not that kind of romantic thing.
And where were you stationed, Bob?
Well, I started off just initially being shipped, and then going to Okinawa, and then going to Southeast Asia. So I was with a unit called, I was with Charlie 1-4, which is a grunt unit. And so it was, I don't know,
It sounds like it still impacts you. I mean, I think, or maybe, we don't often give our veterans time or the space to actually share their stories. I mean, there are a lot of people that are so proud of what they've done, but they still struggle with telling, with some of the things like you're sharing. Is that fall? I mean, you mentioned that your nephew struggles with PTSD a little bit. So do you think that a lot of veterans come back with varying degrees of PTSD?
I think, see, one of the things is that, and I have to like with myself, because I understand it from a psychological aspect as well. Even though it's sometimes it's hard for me to bring it up and then getting into the details of everything. Yeah, same thing with my veteran. From my own perspective, because since then I studied a lot of psychology and ended up getting a double PhD in clinical neuropsychology. Still, even that,
right?
Even that, when you're actually connected, like I was, it's really tough.
Why do you think?
And
why do you think? I mean, do you think there's part of what we wanted to ask about, like, what are the misconceptions about when veterans come home and the services that we provide and the support that we as a country, we think we're giving, but here you are all these years later, and with all of your education and experience, you're still saying that it's hard. Like, what are we not doing for you as a country?
Yeah, I think from my time point, which is, you're going back, over 40 years ago,
right?
And during that period of time, the country was in turmoil, and coming back, and even though having hated being over in Southeast Asia, having hated being over there, it was actually a lot harder coming back here and dealing with it. I think the other thing is that I miss my brothers, and I miss being with them and everything else. And I think that was another struggle.
So do you feel like you weren't able to create that same sense of brotherhood or I'm air quoting family here in the States, because that's not how it is here, and you're forced to do that when you're in the military?
See, when you're with a group of guys, and when you've gone with them and shared the kind of stuff that you shared with them, I think a lot of people in the civilian world, they don't really get it. They don't get, like, the tightness that we had a group that, we lived together. We've seen a lot of losses and stuff.
You're literally in the trenches with each other. Like, there has to be a connection
all the time
that
and
you guys have that nobody could ever understand.
Yes, and we had that kind of support with each other that I never, ever experienced in the civilian world at all. I think there was, because after I got out of the Marines, I joined the LAPD, and I did that up until 81. And that was close, but still, it wasn't the same way. And again, it was different.
So, getting
I think I think a lot of people. I know that myself. Even as a police officer and everything, I still like, what the heck am I doing? And you get down into this, especially a few months after you're getting out, you get it down into this trench, this ditch, and you start looking around, And going from, like, again, I was lucky with the LAPD, but even before that, I was like trying to figure myself out. What the heck am I doing? Trying to find a job. Your mind's not there. Your mind is still back.
Right. And nobody
back in country.
And nobody can understand what you've been through if they haven't been through it. And so, one of the things we're trying to do today is, we know that healthcare is broken for veterans. We know that there is not the support with the mental health component that, but there are things that need to happen and steps that need to be taken for that. But as everyday people who are not in the military, Kim and I have no experience with this, and many of our listeners have no experience with this. What can we do as everyday people in your community, in your neighborhood, in your country to support you? I mean,
give us marching orders in terms of military terms.
Truly, like, we want to know what we, as your community, what can we do when soldiers just come back later on, like, in addition to understanding, because I think understanding and compassion goes a long way. Like, give us some actual tangible things that we can do to make your lives and honor your lives and the commitment that you have made.
Yeah, I think, and you hit something. Just you said something. The sense of community. I think that's where it starts. I think just the neighbors. So instead of like calling names, I remember I was being called names back in the day. All kinds of things, baby killer and this and this and that, and I'm not going to use any bad words here, but at that time, had you had me back then, I probably would have. And I think that the embracement of neighbors and everything else coming together and helping to provide that support. The next layer is getting not just any therapist, because here's the thing, especially with guys. I think with the women it's going to be different. With a lot of guys that are coming back, especially now coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, because they're the closest to it. That's the reason I wanted my nephew on, because he suffered there a few times. Mm-hmm. And I think instead of like throwing, like, you need to go see this therapist, because the therapist is not going to understand.
Right.
And I was volunteering as a therapist with a lot of guys, and I understand what they were going through. And I think what I used was the term coach, like, I'm going to coach you. Because I've been there.
That sounds like it's so much more effective, because when you are a coach who has been there, and that I think with any loss and grief, that if you're going to somebody for therapy or help and they can't understand, it's not as effective. So I think that's amazing. So we hate that we have to go, but our show is actually ending, and we just wanted to truly thank you for your service, and we'd love to continue the conversation. And if you have more tips, we will absolutely add them to our website. I
will actually Facebook you a lot of links and everything that you can add to the site.
Perfect.
Oh,
thank you so much,
and thank you for being so last minute with us. And please give our best to your nephew. And just because it's Veterans Day doesn't mean we only celebrate you today. We celebrate you always, and thank you for what you've done for our country.
Well, thank you for having me on, and I want to wish all my fellow veterans a happy Veterans Day, and get out there and seek the help that, from the right therapist, from the right person, because it's okay. It's okay to get help. You can be a man, you could be a veteran, and you can still seek the help. And I really, really, really want you, each and every one of you, to do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bob.
Have a good day. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just think, it's really the emotion in his voice, and we have no idea.
I know.
And there are plenty of people who've been into different experiences and loss and tragedy. Yeah. And it just goes to show you, we have no idea. But what we can do is stand up and say,
we're here with you.
We're here.
We want to do something.
And sometimes it's just acknowledging the fact that they will never be the same, So that's it for our show today, Kim.
Oh.
So we do have, come to our website too, because we have another show coming up very soon that about medical marijuana, or about the marijuana,
not even medical
recreational.
Marijuana, just pot. We can smoke pot,
I know.
people.
It's crazy. And we have an expert on that. And I think that it's going to be a really interesting episode. And we just appreciate your support on the show.
And come back to broadscast.com so you can see all the tips that Bob's going to give us once we hang up.
See you next time.
You are listening to Broadscast. For more from the Broads, head to broadscast.com.